I was driving through Nevada, somewhere between towns that didn't even have names on the map. The highway stretched like a scar across the desert. My fuel light blinked red, so I pulled over at the only place with lights on, a diner called Sunny's Stop. It was past midnight. The neon sign buzzed and flickered, painting the parking lot with a sickly pink glow. Only one other car sat there, covered in dust thick enough to write a message on. The air smelled like rain that never came. Inside, the bell over the door chimed. The diner looked clean, but too clean, like it was scrubbed by someone who didn't understand why people eat there. The linoleum shone under the fluorescent lights, and every stool at the counter faced a long mirror that ran the length of the wall. A waitress turned toward me. She was smiling, but her lips barely moved. "Welcome," she said, voice thin and slow. "Sit anywhere you like." I took a seat at the counter. The coffee machine hissed in the background. Behind the glass of pie displays, everything looked perfect, too perfect. "Not a crumb, not a smudge. Rough night?" she asked. Her name tag read Lucy. "Long drive," I said. "Just coffee, black." She nodded, still smiling, but her eyes didn't blink, not once. As I waited, I looked around. There were 3 other people. A man in a suit stared into his cup without drinking. A woman in a red dress sat by the window, hands folded, watching the empty road outside. And behind the counter, an older cook leaned against the door to the kitchen, grinning like he'd just heard a joke no one else got. The air felt thick. My phone had no signal. Lucy placed the cup in front of me. Steam rose, curling like smoke. "Careful," she whispered. "It's hot." I took a sip. The taste was metallic, like the smell of pennies. "You get many travelers this late?" I asked. Her smile didn't move. "Only one tonight." "One?" I frowned. "You mean me?" She tilted her head slightly. "Maybe." The man in the suit got up and walked toward the restroom. As he passed behind me, I glanced at the mirror. His reflection didn't move. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, but then I saw my own reflection, and it wasn't me. The man in the mirror wore my jacket, but his face was wrong. The eyes were darker. The smile was wider. He tilted his head when I didn't. My throat went dry. I turned around fast. The reflection stayed still, then slowly caught up, like it was pretending to lag behind. "Lucy," I said, my voice cracking. "That mirrors." She was gone. So was the cook. So was the woman in the red dress. Only the man in the suit's cup sat half full on the counter, steam still rising. I stood. The diner was silent except for the faint hum of the lights. I stepped closer to the mirror. My reflection smiled again, wide, toothy, wrong. "Who are you?" I whispered. It leaned forward, still smiling, and mouthed the words I didn't say. "You're late." The lights flickered. The reflection of the diner was darker than the real one. Tables looked older. The walls were cracked. I saw shapes moving in the shadows there. People sitting still, heads slightly tilted, all smiling. Something behind me clinked. A spoon fell onto the counter. I turned, heart pounding. Lucy stood there again, her face pale, smile fading for the first time. "You should go," she said quietly, "before it finishes." "Before what finishes?" I asked. Her eyes darted toward the mirror. The exchange. I backed away. The reflection of me stood perfectly still. Then it raised its hand, slowly, deliberately, and pressed its palm against the glass. I felt cold metal against my back. I turned to see the door. The open sign had flipped to closed on its own. "Lucy!" I shouted. She was gone again. The reflection's hand pushed harder against the glass. Cracks spread out from its palm like veins. And then, for the first time, it spoke. The voice came from inside my head. "It's your turn now." The sound of glass cracking echoed through the diner. My reflection pressed harder until the mirror bulged, warping like liquid. I stumbled back, bumping into a stool that screeched across the tile. The reflection smiled wider, eyes hollow, teeth sharp and too many. Then it stepped out, not through the mirror, Out of it. The surface rippled like water as it slid free, dripping black liquid onto the counter. It looked like me, but wrong. The skin was pale like candle wax, and its movements were smooth, puppet-like. "Stay back," I said, grabbing a coffee pot. My voice shook. It tilted its head. "You shouldn't have stopped here." The lights buzzed. Every bulb in the diner flickered, then went red for half the second. When the white light returned, the other people were back in their seats. The man in the suit, the woman in the red dress, Lucy behind the counter, all of them smiling. All of them watching. "Lucy," I shouted. "What the hell is this?" She blinked slowly. "We warned you." "No one warned me." The reflection stepped closer. "They tried. You drank the coffee." I looked at the cup. The surface of the liquid wasn't coffee anymore. It was black, glossy, and inside it I saw something moving. A face. My face. Screaming underwater. "Drink or leave," the reflection said. I dropped the pot and backed toward the door. "I'm leaving." It shook its head. "No, not now." "You're already part of it." The mirror behind it began to twist again, showing the diner from a different time. The furniture was old, the walls yellowed with smoke. A different man sat where I had been, same seat, same jacket. He looked terrified. I whispered, "That's not me." Lucy's voice came from behind the counter. It was. The man in the reflection suddenly froze. His skin darkened, hollowed. Then another version of him walked out of the mirror, replacing him, just like mine had. My heart pounded so loud it drowned out the hum of the lights. "This can't be real," I said. The reflection grinned. "It's always real the first time." I ran for the door. The handle burned cold like ice. The metal seared my skin, and I pulled back with a shout. The door didn't open. Behind me, the reflection was closer now. I could feel its breath on my neck. It smelled like burnt metal and rot. "Sit down," it said. "No." Its hand grabbed my shoulder, grip impossibly strong. The skin was freezing, stiff. I swung an elbow back, hit something solid. It didn't even flinch. The woman in the red dress whispered, "Don't fight. It only takes longer." I turned, panicked. "What happens if I don't?" She smiled faintly. "You'll learn." The mirror started to ripple again. Inside it, I saw movement. The diner looked empty, dark, lifeless. Then the reflection of me, the one still inside, blinked, alive, trapped. I realized what was happening. They weren't killing people. They were keeping them. The reflection leaned close, its mouth by my ear. "You shouldn't have stopped." I felt something cold spread through my chest, like water filling my lungs. My vision blurred. My body felt heavy. My reflection in the mirror looked desperate now, pounding from the other side. Lucy's voice floated through the haze. "New coffee. Fresh for the next one." I tried to speak but couldn't. My reflection smiled one last time before turning away. Then everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was behind the counter. Lucy was serving someone, a man in a dusty jacket, sitting exactly where I had. He looked tired. His hands shook slightly as he lifted his cup. I tried to scream. Nothing came out. My reflection, my replacement, stood behind him, smiling. Lucy leaned toward the new customer and whispered, "Careful, it's hot." He smiled weakly. "Thanks, long drive." And in the mirror, I watched the cracks start to form again. The bell over the door let out a weak ring when I walked into Harper's Diner for my first night shift. The sound was tired, like it had been doing this for decades. The air smelled like burnt coffee and bleach. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering just enough to make the chrome surfaces look sickly. "First shift?" the cook asked. He was a heavy man with a scar under his lip and a name tag that read Roy. "Yeah," I said. "Logan." He nodded once, not smiling. "Keep your head down. The night's quiet if you don't go looking for noise." At first I thought he was joking. The shift started slow. 2 truckers, 1 old woman with a newspaper. I refilled coffee, wiped tables, tried to look busy. By 2 a.m., the diner was empty except for me and the hum of the refrigerators. That's when I noticed it. At the far end of the hallway, past the bathrooms, there was a metal door painted the same dull beige as the walls. No handle, just a keyhole. I hadn't seen it on the tour earlier. When Roy came out for a smoke, I asked, "What's behind that locked door?" He froze for half a second. "Storage," he said. "Stay out of it." His tone made me drop it, but when I wiped down the counter later, I caught him staring toward that hallway. Not at me, at the door. The next few nights were normal, the same regulars, the same songs from the old jukebox in the corner, but the door kept bothering me. It didn't look like a storage room door. It looked hidden, like someone had tried to make it blend in. On the 5th night, curiosity won. Roy had left early with a headache. I was alone, closing up. The clock said 3:47 a.m. when I noticed a ring of keys hanging from a hook under the register. I took them before I could talk myself out of it. The hallway felt colder. The closer I got, the quieter the diner seemed, like the building was holding its breath. The first few keys didn't fit. Then one did. The lock clicked like a bone snapping. When I opened the door, a smell hit me. Dust, mildew, and something faintly sweet. The room was small and windowless. A single hanging bulb swayed above an old table covered in Polaroid photos. Hundreds of them. Each photo showed people sitting in the diner, smiling, eating pie. Some were dated, going back years. Then I saw the faces. A trucker I had served coffee to 3 nights ago. A teenage girl who had been on her phone near the window last week. A man with a red cap who'd paid and left without saying a word. Every one of them had been in the diner recently. And under each photo, someone had written a date. All the dates ended the same way, missing. There was an old tape recorder beside the photos. I pressed play. A man's voice crackled through static. "He's good, quiet, keeps his head down. I think he's ready." Then another voice, quieter. "Then let's add him to the wall." The tape stopped. I turned toward the door. Someone was standing there. It was Roy. He didn't speak. He just smiled, the scar on his lip twisting into something cold and knowing. "Didn't I tell you not to go looking for noise?" he said. The light flickered once, then it went out. The last thing I heard was the sound of the lock turning from the outside. When I woke up, the bulb was still swinging. The door was locked. My head pounded. I could taste metal in my mouth. I tried yelling. Nothing. The walls were thick. I kicked the door until my foot hurt. Somewhere above me the air vent rattled, and I realized I wasn't the first one locked here. The Polaroids were still scattered across the table. In the corner, a stack of old boxes sat half collapsed under the weight of dust. I tore them open. Inside were notebooks, each one labeled by year. Inside, columns of names, dates, and times. At the top of the newest one, my name was written in neat block letters. Logan, 3:52 a.m. I froze. That meant whoever wrote it had been watching me. Maybe from the cameras above the counter, maybe from somewhere else. A noise came from the vent, something scraping metal, then a whisper. "Don't make noise." The voice was high, trembling. "Human, who's there?" I whispered back. A small, pale hand appeared through the slits. A young man's face followed, hollow cheeks, dark circles. "My name's Eli," he whispered. "I've been here for 3 weeks." I stared. 3 weeks? How are you still alive?" "They bring food," he said, "sometimes." "Don't eat it." He glanced behind him like someone was coming. "The cameras are hidden behind the photos. They watched everything. You need to find the fuse box." "Cut the power." I stood, scanning the walls. There, behind the old fridge in the corner, I saw a metal panel. I pulled it open. Inside, wires tangled around a small breaker. I flipped every switch. The bulb went black. So did the hallway outside. For a second, everything was silent. Then footsteps, heavy, coming closer. "Roy's coming," Eli whispered. I crouched by the door. The lock clicked. I didn't wait. When the door opened a crack, I slammed it outward with all my weight. It hit Roy square in the face. He grunted and fell. I ran. Through the kitchen, past the booths, out into the parking lot. The sky was just turning gray. I jumped into my car, hands shaking, and drove. 10 miles down the highway, I stopped to call the police. When they arrived, they searched the diner. The hidden room was gone. Just drywall, no photos, no table, nothing. They said I'd imagined it. Stress, lack of sleep. I quit that night. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Roy was still watching. A week later, I got a letter with no return address. Inside was a Polaroid. It showed me asleep in my bed. Underneath, written in the same neat handwriting, "Welcome to the wall." It started on a Wednesday night. Rain hit the diner windows like it was trying to get in. The place smelled like grease, burnt coffee, and bleach. I worked the late shift, alone behind the counter, watching the parking lot through the glass. Empty. Always empty after 1 a.m. My name's Aaron. I've been working at Baxter's Diner for 3 years. I thought I'd seen it all: drunks, creeps, junkies, but nothing prepared me for the man in the black coat. He came in just after 1:20 a.m. The bell over the door didn't ring. I only noticed him when I turned around to refill the coffee pot. He was sitting at the far booth, under the flickering light, watching me. His face was pale, his eyes sunken, like he hadn't slept in years. "Can I help you, sir?" I called out. He didn't move, didn't blink. Then, in a calm, flat voice, he said, "1 order of the Hollow Special." I froze. "Sorry, we don't have anything like that on the menu." He tilted his head. "Yes, you do." I looked down at the menu in my hand. Nothing even close to that name. When I looked back up, the booth was empty. The man was gone. The door never opened. I checked every corner, even the bathroom. No one. The air felt heavy, like static before a storm. I thought maybe I was just tired. I made myself a cup of coffee and tried to shake it off. The next morning, my coworker Sean didn't show up. His car was found on the diner's parking lot, driver's door wide open, engine running, no sign of him. I told the police about the man in the black coat. They looked at me like I was crazy. "Probably someone messing with you," the officer said. I didn't argue, but I started locking the doors after midnight. The next night, around 1:15, I saw headlights in the lot. A man in a hoodie came in. He looked exhausted, shaking from the rain. "Coffee and pancakes," he said, rubbing his hands. I poured the coffee. The bell over the door jingled again. My stomach dropped. It was the same man. Black coat, same booth. I stared at him, terrified. The guy in the hoodie didn't seem to notice. He kept talking about the weather. Then the man in black called out again. "The Hollow Special." My voice cracked. "We don't serve that here." He smiled this time. His teeth were too white, too straight. "You will." The lights flickered. Both men vanished. I screamed and dropped the coffee pot. The glass shattered. When I ran to the booth, there was only one thing left: a wet, folded receipt. It said, "Onyx Hollow Special, paid in full." I called the cops again. They searched everything. No trace of either man. They told me to take a few days off. I didn't. I needed the money. The next few nights were quiet, until Monday. Around 1:25 a.m., I got another order slip in the kitchen printer. No one had touched it. No online orders, no calls, just the sound of the machine printing by itself. It read, "Tox Hollow Special, extra rare." The paper smelled like smoke. I backed away. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. I went outside for air. The parking lot was empty. just the buzzing streetlight and my reflection in the diner window. Then I saw movement behind me, a shadow in the reflection, walking across the counter. When I turned, there was no one there. That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number, no caller ID. I hesitated, then answered. A man's voice whispered, "Your shift's not over yet." The line went dead. Inside, the kitchen lights flickered again. Something was sizzling on the grill. I hadn't turned it on. I could smell cooked meat, metallic, like blood. I grabbed a towel and stepped closer. The grill was on high heat, the surface blackened. On it lay 2 slabs of something that didn't look like beef or pork. They were wrong. One piece twitched. The printer started again. Another order. To go this time. I dropped the towel. My hands were shaking. The sound of the rain got louder, almost deafening. When I looked back at the grill, both pieces were gone, and someone was knocking on the back door. 3 slow knocks. "Aaron." The voice came from outside. Familiar. It was Sean's voice, but Sean was missing. I backed away until I hit the fridge. The knocking got louder. "Aaron, open up." I stared at the door. There was no shadow under it, no sound of breathing, just the voice. "Aaron, your order's ready." The lock clicked on its own. The lock turned with a metallic snap. The door opened an inch, creaking like something was pushing from the other side. Cold air flooded the kitchen. I wanted to run, but something in me couldn't move. "Sean," I said, barely above a whisper. The door swung open. He stood there, or what was left of him. His uniform was soaked, his skin pale and sagging like wax. His eyes were empty sockets. He smiled too wide. "You forgot the sides," he said in a voice that didn't sound human. I stumbled back, hitting the counter. My hands landed on something wet. It was another receipt, fresh ink, still warm. Threx Hollow Special, add Aaron. The lights in the diner went out. Only the neon sign outside lit the room, pulsing red. Sean, or the thing wearing him, stepped inside. His shoes left black footprints on the tiles. "Stay away," I said, reaching for the kitchen knife. He tilted his head. "You already took the order." I grabbed the phone and tried to call 911. Static. Then a voice on the line whispered, "We're out of time." The phone melted in my hand. The plastic dripped onto the floor like candle wax. Sean took another step forward. His face started to collapse, skin bubbling and sliding off. Beneath it was something dark and glistening, like oil. Then he spoke again, clearer this time. "They're hungry, Aaron." I ran. Out of the kitchen, through the diner, toward the front door. But when I looked outside, the parking lot wasn't there anymore. It was just blackness, endless, like the world had stopped existing beyond the glass. My reflection stared back at me. Behind it, I saw the man in the black coat sitting at his booth again. He wasn't alone. Every missing person I'd heard about in the last week sat with him. Sean was there too, his head twitching like a broken marionette. The man gestured for me to come closer. "No," I said out loud, but my legs started moving anyway. Each step felt like walking into cold water. The room stretched, the sound of the rain faded. The walls pulsed like they were breathing. He smiled when I reached him. "You've been a good worker, Aaron." I shook my head. "I didn't make that food. I didn't serve anyone." He nodded slowly. "But you took the orders. That's all that matters." I looked down at the table. On the plate in front of him was something that looked like a heart. It was still beating. He picked it up with his fork and knife, cutting into it delicately. Blood ran across the plate like syrup. "Do you know what the Hollow Special is?" he asked. I couldn't speak. He leaned in close. His skin smelled like smoke and rot. "It's whatever fills the emptiness." Then he was gone. The booth empty. The lights came back on. The rain stopped. The diner looked normal again, clean, quiet. Except for one thing. Every table had a plate on it, each one covered with a napkin. My hands were trembling when I lifted the first napkin. Under it was a photograph. My photograph, me, standing behind the counter, smiling. The next table had another picture. Me locking the door, me cleaning the coffee pot, me standing in the parking lot. The last one made my stomach twist. It was me, sitting in that same booth, staring blankly ahead. The printer started again. Order confirmed, 1X Hollow Special, Aaron. I ran to the door. It opened this time. The parking lot was back. My car was still there. I didn't look behind me. I didn't take my purse, my phone, anything. I drove until the sun came up. The diner was miles behind me. When I stopped at a gas station, the cashier smiled. "You work at Baxter's, right?" My mouth went dry. "Not anymore." He frowned. "Weird. Someone dropped off your order a few minutes ago." He handed me a takeout bag. White, grease-stained, my name written across the top. Inside was a single receipt, paid in full, no total, no signature. Just a timestamp, 1:25 a.m., the exact minute the man in black always came in. I threw the bag in the trash, got in my car, and drove again. The radio flickered with static. Then, between the noise, I heard that same flat voice. "Order ready for pickup." I looked at the rearview mirror. In the back seat, the takeout bag was sitting upright, still warm.